What's it like to be on the receiving end when your own sister acts all cute and clingy? My cheap sister sent a message to her boyfriend but accidentally sent it to me instead. I heard her put on this high-pitched, syrupy voice and say, "Honey, I'm at the school gate, where are you?" Just hearing it made my stomach churn. I almost threw up last night's dinner. I narrowed my eyes, the corner of my mouth curling into a wicked grin. Then, forcing my voice into an exaggerated, bubble tone, I replied, "Baby, I just got out of class." The chat box showed, "The other party is typing." I kept going, "Baby, did you wait for me on purpose so we could go home together? I'm so touched. Baby, you're such a good girl." My sister, now embarrassed and furious, shot back, "Are you out of your mind? That's enough. Don't you think this is disgusting? If you send one more, I'll kill you." But the next second, my sister transferred 500 yuan to me via WeChat and typed, "Little brother, I'm begging you, please don't tell mom and dad I'm dating early." Chapter 1. The college entrance exams were finally over. As I walked out of the test center, I turned off airplane mode on my phone. The notification bar went crazy, messages popping up one after another. I had just finished clearing them when a voice message from my sister suddenly popped up. In her syrupy, cutesy voice, she asked, "Honey, I'm at the school gate, where are you?" A shiver ran down my spine. My brows furrowed sharply. What kind of nonsense was Alicia pulling? I stared at the message for a moment, thinking. Then I remembered, one time at home, I'd accidentally overheard her on the phone. On the other end, someone faintly called her baby. I'd always suspected she was dating early, but I never had solid proof. Every time I tried to pry it out of her, she flat out denied it. Well, today she delivered the evidence to me on a silver platter. The corner of my mouth curved into a wicked grin. I forced my voice into an exaggerated, bubble tone and replied, "Baby, I just walked out of the exam hall." Calling my own sister baby made me want to gag, but knowing it made her even more uncomfortable than me was pure joy. The second my message was sent, her chat box showed, "The other party is typing," over and over. 10 minutes later, I was almost at the school gate, but she still hadn't replied. She was trying to ghost me, act like nothing happened. I chuckled. There's no way I'd let her off that easily. So I typed again, "Baby, did you wait for me on purpose so we could go home together? I'm so touched. Baby, you're such a good girl." And then, in my most sarcastic tone, "Baby, why aren't you saying anything?" Finally, she snapped, furious and embarrassed. She replied, "George, are you insane? That's enough already." I grinned at the screen, "Baby, I think someone's dating early. I bet mom and dad would be very interested to hear about it." 5 minutes later, my sister transferred 500 yuan to me via WeChat. For once, she actually sounded humble. "I'm begging you, please don't tell mom and dad." I didn't budge. I didn't take the money. Nor did I reply. From a distance, I could already see Alicia standing at the school gate. I had to admit, my sister had good looks. Among the sea of uniforms, her face and figure stood out effortlessly. I slowed my pace, hiding behind a nearby stone pillar to observe. I wanted to see exactly who her boyfriend was. 5 or 6 minutes passed. Instead of her boyfriend, someone completely unexpected showed up. A girl in a white dress with a high ponytail stopped beside my sister. Her features were delicate and beautiful, her aura pure and fresh. Even her side profile, lit by the sunlight, was dazzling. Her name was Willow. She was our school's campus queen, and my sister's best friend. Top beauty, top grades. She'd already been guaranteed admission to Peking University. Countless boys chased after her, just standing there casually. She drew eyes from all directions, so pretty I almost forgot what I was doing. In my line of sight, my sister chatted with Willow while scanning the crowd now and then. I made sure to avoid her gaze. After a while, a boy in a white shirt and black casual pants appeared out of nowhere. He naturally draped an arm over my sister's shoulder. There was a confident smile on his face, and his eyes held a warm, pampering look. I quickly pulled out my phone to record a video. The boy's face was familiar. If I remembered right, his name was Luis, one of the school's most notorious rich kids, a sports student. Well, looks like she really scored herself a big catch. Chapter 2. I recorded a video and took some photos. I sent one of them to my sister. From afar, she lowered her gaze, her face looking a little tense. My phone buzzed, her message popped up, "Don't you like Willow?" Then she added, "I'll help you chase her." I raised an eyebrow. Didn't expect my sister to try and make a deal, using this to shut me up. Willow was the daughter of our neighbor. Compared to my sister, who's basically a loudmouthed, screaming chicken, Willow was polite, well-educated, gentle, and considerate. Not only was her face gorgeous, her figure was absolutely stunning. What man could look at her and not feel something? I was no exception. I sent her an okay gesture emoji. Then I showed myself. walking over to where my sister and the others stood, pretending to bump into them by accident. "Hey, sis," I greeted. My sister looked at me, her face slightly sour. Louise quickly let go of her shoulder, awkwardly greeting me. Willow smiled at me. "How was the exam?" I smiled back. "Pretty good." Looking between them, I asked, "So, were you guys meeting up for something?" Willow nodded. My sister's voice turned a little cold. "We've got something to do. Don't wait for me." I ignored the hint to leave, shrugged, and said, "Why don't you let me tag along? I'm done with exams anyway, nothing else to do." Then, looking directly at Willow, I added, "That is, if it's okay with you." She looked up at me, her beautiful almond-shaped eyes lowering slightly, lips curling into a smile. "Of course it's okay." "No." That no came from my sister. Sharply, she said, "George, tonight's plans don't include you. Don't just butt in out of nowhere." I looked at her calmly. The air between us felt off. Louise patted her shoulder, trying to ease the mood. "Hey, I think it'd be nice if George came along." Willow chimed in. Yeah, it'd be more fun with George. It's not like he's a stranger." My sister frowned, clearly annoyed, then tossed out, "Whatever," and walked ahead with her arm hooked through Louise's. Willow tilted her head, leaned closer to me, and half covered her lips as she whispered, "Don't take it too personally. She just doesn't know how to get along with you." My heartbeat stumbled for a moment. With Willow this close, I was surrounded by her presence entirely. I caught the sweet, fresh scent from her dress. As for her words, I didn't respond. Chapter 3. My sister and I had a terrible relationship growing up. Arguing and fighting were part of our daily routine. Being loving and harmonious, that was pure fantasy. When I was a kid, she lost me for 5 whole years. From the age of 5 to 10, I was lucky enough to be taken in by a kind family. At 10, my parents finally found me. Right in front of them, I accused my sister of losing me on purpose. All I got in return was them defending her. They said, "You're remembering it wrong. Your sister isn't that kind of person. It was just an accident. You can't keep blaming your sister, understand?" From that moment on, I hated her. Hated Alicia. At my worst, I wished she'd fall down the stairs and die. Choke on water. Choke on her food. Get struck by lightning. All sorts of vicious thoughts spun in my mind. 5 years of being separated from my family didn't make my parents more protective of me. It only created a faint, constant distance. They felt I wasn't as obedient and sensible as I used to be. They thought those 5 years had corrupted me, that I'd become unruly, narrow-minded, crude, unteachable. That was their unspoken judgment of me. One sleepless night, not long after I came back home, I got out of bed to look for my parents, only to overhear their conversation in the living room. It felt like someone had slammed a heavy hammer into my skull, suppressing the rage and injustice boiling in my chest. I clenched my teeth in the darkness, eyes full of resentment, staring in the direction of the voices without moving for a long time. Then I noticed the door to the room next to mine crack open. My sister had heard it too, through the faint light spilling from the crack. I saw her hesitate, taking a step toward me, then shrinking back. When she finally did start to walk over, I turned around and went straight back to my room, shutting the door behind me. From that night on, I learned how to wear a mask. Chapter 4. I went along with my sister and the others to have dinner. At the table, Willow took the initiative to talk to me. She knew how to listen, how to keep a conversation flowing. Chatting with her felt effortlessly pleasant. My sister, on the other hand, was distracted the entire time. Who knows what she was thinking about? Maybe figuring out how to kick me out of their little group. Luis was eating, when suddenly he put down his chopsticks and waved toward the door. Instinctively, I turned my head. The moment I saw who it was, my heart sank. Makoto, the person I despised the most. He was the one who, during my 5 years missing, had been brought into my family as my replacement. When I returned, I caused absolute chaos trying to drive him out. My family knew perfectly well how much I resented Makoto, but what I hadn't expected was that all these years, they had kept in touch with him behind my back, so close that it had become its own little circle. I clenched my teeth, glaring at Alicia. She looked right back at me, her expression cool as she said, "Told you not to come, but you insisted." Her words were always sharp enough to cut. Willow frowned at that, giving her a little kick under the table. "Alicia, don't be like that," she said with mild reproach. Staring at Willow's profile, I forced down the irritation in my chest, trying to keep up appearances. Makoto strolled over with a grin. "Sorry to keep you waiting, everyone," he said, but when his gaze landed on me, his smile faltered for a second, and his tone grew cautious as he said, surprised, "George, you're here too." Maybe I was biased, or maybe I was just naturally suspicious, but that sentence rubbed me the wrong way, as if what he really meant was I shouldn't be here. Normally, I never bothered to hide my disdain for him, but in front of others, especially with Willow here, I tried to act easygoing. I forced out a stiff smile, nodded, and let it go. Looking around for a seat, Makoto asked, "Where should I sit?" Willow waved him over. "There's a spot next to me. You can sit here." It was a 6-person table. I was sitting next to Willow. Alicia and Luis were across from us. Technically, Makoto could have sat on Alicia's side, but the moment Willow spoke, I felt my brow crease. Makoto laughed. Thoughtful as always, "These are all my favorites." He sat down beside Willow, grinning like an idiot, and started eating bite after bite with obvious appetite. "So, how were your exams? You have a good feeling about them?" he asked. "Remember, we agreed we'd all get into the same university. Gotta stick to that." As he chatted away, Alicia smiled lightly. "Relax, it's no problem." Luis chimed in. "I'm good too." Willow pouted. "Well, you two are fine, but I'll be stuck at my own school." Alicia rolled her eyes. "There you go, being all humble brag again. Too much. We should ban future Peking University students from talking to us." They laughed and joked, sharing stories and inside references I didn't know. That easy familiarity between them was like an invisible barrier, shutting me out. I ate quietly. Everything tasted like sawdust in my mouth. A few of the dishes had been ordered by Willow, and now I realized they'd been ordered for Makoto. Listening to their laughter, I stared down at the teacup in my clenched hand, to cut the greasiness, and simply out of habit. I'd ordered tea. They had all ordered soft drinks. I was the only one out of place. I watched the thin, barely visible sheen of oil floating on the tea's surface, and felt a wave of nausea. So Alicia, Willow, and Makoto were really this close. Even Luis and Makoto acted like they'd been friends for years. And me? Before today, I didn't even know who Luis was. Obviously, I'm my parents' biological son. Obviously, Alicia and I are real brother and sister. Obviously, I was the one who met Willow first. Obviously, Makoto is a fraud. Yet now, I've somehow become the outsider. Chapter 5. George, which university are you planning to go to? Noticing my silence, Willow shifted the topic toward me. I looked at Willow and met her gaze. In her eyes was that familiar, faint smile. What I loved most were her peach blossom eyes, tender as flowing water, filled with subtle affection. Just one gentle glance could capture your soul, making you sink into them, unable to break free. Of course, I also knew that peach blossom eyes could look loving even to a stray dog, so I often warned myself not to let that illusion cloud my judgment. But I was greedy. I wanted to keep those eyes all to myself, to have them look only at me. So I fixed my gaze on her eyes and slowly let out 2 words, Peking University. The moment I said it, everyone looked surprised. Makoto chuckled and said, "George, you've learned to joke, huh?" Alicia didn't say anything. She just pressed her lips together and looked at me. Luis chimed in, "Great ambition." Willow's brows curved slightly. She hooked the corner of her lips and tilted her head. "All right, then I'll be waiting for you at Peking University." Makoto's expression shifted instantly, though he kept smiling as he asked Alicia, "Is George's usual academic performance really that good?" Alicia nodded lightly. He's in the top 10 of his grade." Then she turned her head toward me and winked. "But there's still a gap before getting into Peking University." This time, Makoto's smile seemed genuinely amused. "George, good luck." I lowered my eyes with a cold sneer. Everyone at this table was fake as hell. Chapter 6. They had booked a KTV room in advance. After dinner, the group went straight there. Makoto had a good voice. Singing practically became his solo performance. I wasn't in the mood. I was only paying attention to Willow. I asked, "Willow, duet." The song had just switched. Willow had just picked up the microphone to reply. But Makoto, having finished the last song, turned and sat right between Willow and me, blocking me. He smiled at Willow. "I've been wanting to try this song too. How about?" I cut in immediately. "Then I'll sing it with you." Makoto's smile faltered for a second. After a pause, he said generously, "All right." Willow tilted her head at me, then reached over and handed me the microphone. This duet turned out unpleasant for both of us. After Makoto had enough singing, he started joking and chatting with Willow instead. I lowered my head and sent 2 messages to my sister. "Weren't you going to help me pursue Willow, did you?" Alicia glanced at her lit-up phone screen, then quickly turned it off. "I'm going to the restroom," Makoto suddenly said, standing up and walking out. After a moment, Willow also got up, saying she'd step out for a bit. Looking at the 2 empty seats, I couldn't shake a strange feeling, a restless unease. Alicia ignored my messages, singing a love duet with her boyfriend. I lowered my head, scrolling on my phone. My finger hovered over Willow's profile picture, a white cat. Suddenly, my hand tensed. My gaze landed on the keychain Makoto had left on the sofa. Dangling from it was a fluffy white cat charm, clearly something gifted by a girl. Chapter 7. I frowned, trying my best not to speculate. Maybe it was just a coincidence. I stood up and left the private room, walking toward the restroom. As I passed room after room, the golden hallway stretched on, long, identical. Almost enough to make someone lose their way. Turning a corner by chance, the scene before me stopped me in my tracks. Makoto was holding Willow in his arms. His palm rested gently on her hair, and the gaze he lowered onto her was filled with helpless indulgence. The lights above were so bright they stung my eyes. In that instant, my heart seemed to stop. Now it all made sense. Of course it made sense. After all, everything I liked would eventually be taken by Makoto. The year after I went missing, Makoto came to live in my house. We're actually cousins. Makoto is the son of my mom's twin sister. After his parents divorced, they each found new partners. He was given custody to his father. My aunt and her new husband went abroad. I heard Makoto's stepmother treated him poorly, and he once called my mom crying, telling her his grievances. My mom, feeling sorry for him, and perhaps because my disappearance left a wound, saw in Makoto, who resembled me a little, a place to pour out all the motherly love she'd lost. She decided on the spot to bring him into our home and raise him. Our family was well off, living in a wealthy villa district. Makoto, living under our roof, enjoyed everything that once belonged to me. My parents called him son. My sister told everyone he was my younger brother. Everyone liked Makoto. The day I was found, dirty, disheveled, looking like a beggar, I saw Makoto standing tall on the staircase, looking down at me with a condescending gaze. My mind went blank, and when I heard him calling my parents dad and mom, and calling my sister by the same name I used, I lost it. I charged at him, ready to hit him. I grabbed his collar and roared, "That's my dad and my mom. That's my sister. Shut the hell up." I was like a wild animal in a panic, furiously attacking the intruder who had taken over my territory. The first 6 months after I came back home were hell for me. I was miserable. It took everything I had to finally force my parents to send Makoto away. Over the years, I still saw him during holidays or family gatherings. Every time, my parents would instinctively compare me to him, no matter how much I excelled in everything. In their eyes, I was always lacking. That flaw came from a deep-rooted bias in their hearts. They saw me as morally flawed, narrow-minded. I've been unwilling to accept it. I've suffered. I've been angry. Even now, I still work hard to prove myself. I want to protect everything that should have been mine. Yet it all feels like it's on the verge of collapsing. My parents don't feel like my parents. Alicia doesn't feel like my sister. And now, Willow is the same. They can see Makoto, but they can't see George. Chapter 8. I turned around and saw Alicia standing behind me. She had seen what I had just seen. Her expression was complicated, as if she wanted to say something but stopped herself. I walked past her without giving her a glance. "George." My sister caught up with me in a few steps, tugging at my sleeve and calling me softly. That one call was like a spark, igniting all the anger I had been holding in the whole night. I yanked my arm free and shoved her to the ground. She stood up, scowling. "What's your problem? Are you out of your mind?" I glared at her with hatred, my teeth clenched. "This is what you call helping me? You knew they were together, yet you still pushed me to chase her. What? You think that's funny? Right now I really feel like a goddamn clown. Is that what you wanted? To watch me make a fool of myself? Well, great, now you've seen it. Are you satisfied?" The humiliation of being played with and having my dignity trampled made my voice shake. What made it worse was that this shame came from someone bound to me by blood. I looked at my sister and laughed bitterly. "Wow, Alicia, you really are my sister, helping an outsider mess with me. From childhood till now, you've always been like this. What is it? Are you just wired to side with others? Alicia, how can you keep being this cheap and shameless for so long?" She lowered her gaze, pressed her lips together, and said nothing. She stepped toward me, then stepped back again. "I didn't know," she explained. "I didn't know they were together." I rubbed my temples, letting out a laugh of disbelief. "You didn't know," I said. "Bullshit, you didn't know. What's your relationship with them? One's your best friend, the other's your childhood sweetheart. And you're telling me you didn't know? Are you trying to fool an idiot?" I went on. "You know I have bad blood with Makoto, yet you've kept in touch with him behind my back. You know I like Willow, and you said you'd help me pursue her. You know everything. So why pretend to be innocent? You just wanted to watch me crash and burn." I stared at Alicia, my heart torn between pain and fury. That deep, festering darkness I'd carried for years was eating away at me, making every part of me hurt. Through clenched teeth, I growled, "You're my sister, why would you mess with me like this?" From the private room next door, I heard a song I recognized. The voice carried line by line into the hallway. There, Alicia and I stood in silence, facing each other. Those eyes, so similar to mine, held an emotion I'd never seen before. And then, Willow and Makoto appeared in my sight. They looked at us in shock. I turned and walked away. I wanted to leave, To leave that little circle that had never belonged to me. Chapter 9. I wandered aimlessly down the street. Passing under one streetlight after another, I watched my shadow stretch long, then shrink short again. Eventually, I found a spot to sit at a bus stop, staring at the cars speeding past on the road. I was suddenly filled with regret. Regret for losing my temper. Regret for speaking without thinking. I made it seem as if I cared about them so much. When I finally calmed down, the awkwardness hit me. The bus stop was completely empty. I glanced at the sign and realized it was already past 11. Bus service had long ended. I hadn't brought my backpack with me. My phone was still in my pocket. But I didn't want to go home yet. I checked the map. Walking home from here would take an hour and a half. I decided to walk back slowly. When I reached the riverside and was about to cross the pedestrian bridge, I caught sight of a small figure carrying an oversized burlap sack, rummaging through a trash can. The filthy, ill-fitting clothes, the frail body, and those startled eyes turning toward me when they heard my footsteps. It all sent a jolt through my soul. On a summer night in the south, the air was still damp and stifling, the wind offering no hint of coolness. In just a short moment, I was drenched in sweat. It was like I had fallen into a whirlpool. Everything before my eyes twisted into black and white. Memories buried deep inside began to crack open. That unbearable past pressing down on me like a suffocating nightmare. I collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath. Sweat pouring down in torrents. In my daze, I heard my sister's voice. She suddenly appeared in my black and white world, calling my name in panic. Something sweet was pushed into my mouth. She took off my sweat-soaked jacket and tucked it into her bag. Then she pulled out some tissues, crouched down, and wiped the sweat from my face. Maybe I was dreaming. In the dream, my sister really was the sister I remembered. Chapter 10. My sister supported me as we walked across the pedestrian bridge. Fully conscious now, I kept my eyes open, staring sideways at the pitch-black river water below. I hadn't expected her to chase after me. At this moment, with her holding me up, I stayed silent. When we were young, we often looked out for each other, supporting one another, but that was so long ago. So long that I had forgotten what that warmth felt like. In recent years, we've been at each other's throats. I'm all thorns. Her tongue is sharp as poison. There's not the slightest trace of the sibling affection we should have had. Sometimes I even suspect Alicia had been switched with someone else. George. My sister suddenly called my name. I didn't respond. She knew I was listening and went on talking anyway. With a sigh, she said, I admit I know Makoto likes Willow, but Willow has never clearly accepted his feelings. I truly didn't know they were together. In a softer voice, she added, I never meant to embarrass you. I let out a low, cold laugh. Oh, you didn't know? Then I guess you also didn't know that Makoto and I can't stand each other. In a tone full of reproach, she said, that's exactly why I told you not to go, but you insisted on going. Hearing her sniffle, I gritted my teeth. So you were deliberately messing with my head, I went on. You could have just told me you were meeting up with Makoto. Then I turned the blade of my words. And another thing, Makoto and I are like fire and water. Yet you go behind my back and cozy up to him. Whose side are you on? Whose sister are you? Alicia let go of my arm and said sharply, if I had told you, would you not have gone? You still would have gone. She continued. Makoto is our relative. We lived together for so many years. How could I possibly cut off contact with him? And why are you so petty? Can't you act like a man for once? Why do you have to hold this grudge against Makoto? He never did anything wrong to you. He never owed you anything. I suddenly fell silent, rolling my stiff shoulders. I took a deep breath and said each word slowly. Cut that crap. I call you sister, and you really think you're my elder. You grew up in comfort, never suffered a single hardship, and now you want me to be magnanimous, calling me petty, saying I'm not a man. Wonderful. Should I thank you for that? The way I turned out today is thanks to you. I brushed past her and strode forward with long, steady steps. Of course I knew nothing was going to change. Makoto didn't do anything wrong. Then what the hell did I do wrong? Was it my fault I went missing? Everything in the family, both love and material things, was shared with him. How can anyone say he doesn't owe me? Of course he owes me. The bridge stretched on and on. So long I couldn't see the end. I stared into the distant lights, the bright dots before my eyes gradually blurring, merging into a hazy sea of light. Chapter 11. The days during break were still the same as before, except my sister no longer argued with me. After the exams ended, the boredom was almost unbearable. Coming to a sudden stop after such a tense, busy study schedule left me oddly lost. For an entire week, I holed up at home listening to narrated web novels. I even downloaded a few games and made some online friends. Revenge-style leisure. My sister, on the other hand, went out every day, shopping, watching movies, playing murder mystery games. She had a lot of close friends and never lacked plans. Sometimes before coming home late at night, She would message me asking what I wanted for supper. The first time I got such a message, I stared at my phone in confusion and asked, "Is this really you?" She replied with exasperation, "Do you need me to video call you for proof?" It was as if she had grown up overnight on the day the college entrance exam ended. Trying to repair our sibling relationship, my parents were both busy and only came home at night. During the day, it was just me and the housekeeper. I was in the middle of a game when a message from Willow popped up. "Are you home?" I hadn't seen her since the last gathering. Seeing her message now brought back the image of her in Makoto's arms. Even the white cat in her profile picture no longer looked as pleasant to me as before. After a while, I finally replied, "Yeah, why?" She quickly responded, "I made some pastries and wanted you to try them. I'm downstairs at your place." I got out of bed and went to the second-floor balcony. In the blazing sun, Willow smiled brightly and waved at me. The moment I saw her, a restless stir rose in my chest. Willow had brought some desserts. While sipping her milk tea, she said, "My mom says eating something sweet will make you feel better." She pouted slightly. "Even though I don't know what happened, it feels like you haven't been very happy lately." Blinking, she added, "I hope George can cheer up." I didn't understand. My gaze followed the straw she was sipping from, up to her long lashes. Willow's eyes, half lowered, suddenly lifted to meet mine, the corners tilting upward. She asked, "What is it? Is there something on my face?" I looked at her and asked, "You want me to be happy? Why? Making food especially for me, bringing it over in person, and saying things that could easily be misinterpreted. Sure, there could be innocent explanations. But this wasn't something you did for just any friend. Besides, wasn't she with Makoto? If so, what was she doing at another man's house?" Willow froze for a moment, then gave a soft hum and said, "Can't I care about you? I want you to be happy because I care about you." My heartbeat went wild, beyond my control, but I forced myself to stay calm. Willow took another sip through her straw, her beautiful eyes smiling as she said, "I want all the people I care about, and who care about me, to be happy." Her words extinguished my ridiculous thoughts. I sat there, stiff, eating the pastry, my fingers curled tight. I asked, "Are you dating Makoto?" Willow looked surprised, shaking her head quickly. No. Maybe my shock was too obvious. Because after thinking for a moment, Willow said, "You saw him hugging me, didn't you?" I frowned and gave a short Willow covered her mouth and let out a small laugh. After I rejected his confession, he asked if he could just hug me once. She pressed her lips together. "He said it like that, Anne." I didn't want him to feel too bad. Willow studied my expression. Then she suddenly asked, "Are you mad?" Why would she ask me that? I looked at Willow without answering. She blinked and asked again, "George, are you mad because of me?" Her elbow rested on the solid wood dining table, chin propped in one hand, head tilted toward me. In those clear eyes was a trace of something I couldn't quite name. The off-shoulder dress she wore revealed her delicate, beautiful collarbones. With that pose, she was seducing me. That was the thought that flashed through my mind. On impulse, I did something bold and reckless. I reached for her milk tea. "Can I have a sip?" I asked. A flicker of surprise crossed Willow's eyes. Her gaze lingered on the mouth of the straw, her eyes glinting faintly. My face was calm, but inside I was anything but. This was a test. "What are you two doing?" The sudden voice made me turn my head. My sister was back. What a pity. Just as I was about to pull my hand back, Willow handed me the cup. Looking straight at me, she smiled. "It's very sweet." In that moment, my blood was boiling. The whole world narrowed to the pounding of my heart, and the graceful curves of the girl before me. Chapter 12. Makoto's confession failed. I was pleased. To be exact, as long as he failed, I was happy. That little test made me realize that Willow was interested in me. I didn't confess. She didn't take the initiative to move further either. It felt like we were stuck in a delicate balance, ambiguous, pulling back and forth. Time passed quickly. The next week would be the day grades came out. Bored of staying home, I made plans to go out for dinner with a friend. Before asking him, I sent Willow a message. "Want to go watch a movie?" She replied after more than 10 minutes. "Sorry, George, I'm meeting my best friend today. Let's do it another day." "Okay." I felt a little disappointed, but said I understood. When I was heading out, my sister was about to go out as well. She casually asked, "Where to?" I answered blandly, "Dinner." She glanced at me but didn't say much, only asked as I was putting on my jacket, "Did you estimate your score yet?" The moment I opened the door, the summer heat outside was suffocating. I said indifferently, "No need. It was too hot." I took a taxi to meet my buddy, who I hadn't seen in more than half a month. We played 2 frustrating rounds of games, had a forgettable meal. The only highlight was catching up and joking around together. Then he asked, "Did you know your sister is dating Luis?" He tossed the question out mid-conversation. I asked, How do you know? Hadn't Alicia kept that private? He looked down at his phone, then slid it over to me. I saw it on Luis's WeChat moments. He said, I was in the same class as him in our first year. I looked at the picture he pointed to. Luis had his arm around my sister's shoulder, grinning broadly. I swiped through Luis's moments, my finger stopping at his most recent post. The caption read, Victory Study Group Score Estimation Gathering. The picture showed 4 cups of milk tea. The cafe's air conditioning was blasting. And I felt a bit cold. Somewhere beside me, my friend was still talking. But I didn't really hear him. Instead, I asked out of nowhere, would you be friends with my enemy? He froze for a second, then answered firmly, what do you take me for? Of course not, unless I didn't know. But if I knew, definitely not, that'd make me a traitor. I asked again, what if my enemy was your childhood friend? Huh. His face grew conflicted. Why? Did you two have some misunderstanding? I might try to help clear it up, and if I can't reconcile with them, I pressed. Then I'd just keep you from meeting or talking to each other. I kept pushing. What if I made you choose one of us? He clutched his head in pain. Why are you asking me such a headache question? Just tell me which friend you hate. This is like my girlfriend asking me if she and my mom fell into the water. Who would I save? You're both my brothers. I really can't choose. I smiled a little and said, just kidding. You took it seriously. But George, he said, if they ever did something against you, I'd definitely be on your side. He patted my shoulder, saying it with complete seriousness. I smiled again. Chapter 13. After parting ways with my brother, I headed in a different direction. Passing by a certain street corner, my gaze unintentionally swept across a glass window. My steps faltered. I stared at the people sitting by the window, lingering for a long while. Handsome men and beautiful women, radiating youthful energy. My sister sat in a chair, laughing so hard she was practically trembling, leaning into Luis's arms. Makoto was grinning as he said something, then suddenly flicked Willow's forehead. Willow pouted her lips. The 4 of them were harmonious and cheerful, and I had always been the one outside of that circle. From the very beginning, I simply didn't fit in with them. My expression remained calm. I took in each of their expressions and postures, committing them to memory. Then, suddenly, my sister's eyes met mine. She straightened in her seat, looking at me through the glass in stunned surprise. Her movement drew the attention of the others. One by one, they turned to look at me. The change in Makoto's expression amused me greatly. I smiled, as if greeting them. Willow stood up, but Makoto pressed her shoulder down. For some reason, I suddenly didn't care anymore. A kind of weary numbness settled in. I withdrew my gaze and walked away in long strides. From the corner of my eye, I saw someone chasing after me. I didn't want to waste words on them. Turning a corner, I slipped into a narrow alley. Coming out the other end, I tilted my head up at the sunset on the horizon. The gentle glow of the evening sun fell into my eyes, but couldn't reach my heart. I walked down the street, emptying my mind. Star. I brushed past a young girl. She suddenly called out. Those 2 syllables felt like a beam of light piercing through the long years, crashing into my mind. I froze on the spot, pupils trembling. I could feel her gaze on my back, but I didn't have the courage to turn around. I suddenly broke into a run, diving into the crowd, rushing past the corner of a streetlight with a traffic light, and stopping only at the second set of lights. The evening wind swept by. The red light before me felt unbearably long. I hesitated for a moment, but in the end, I couldn't control myself. I turned around. Through the endless flow of traffic, my eyes met those of the girl standing under the red light on the opposite side. She stood out in the crowd, her looks immediately catching the eye. She was slender, yet in the height of summer had wrapped herself up tightly. The wind blew, and the sleeve on her left side hung limp and empty. That powerless, wind-tossed sleeve made my chest ache sharply. In my mind, the little girl I remembered merged with the distant figure before me. She looked at me quietly. Her eyes carried a faint sadness and longing. The light turned green. The crowd around her began walking toward me, but she remained rooted in place, staring at me. I forced myself to turn away. As soon as the light in front of me turned green, I ran without hesitation, ran out of her sight. I stopped under a large tree, panting heavily. My heart pounded violently inside my chest. Blankly, I stared at the ground. The image of her sorrowful eyes kept flashing before me. A heaviness pressed against my chest, so stifling it felt like suffocation. I kept walking, but each step grew heavier. I stopped. A few seconds later, I abruptly turned back and ran. I ran past the street corner, through the crowd, through the wind. When I reached the traffic light where the girl had been standing, I searched everywhere, but couldn't find that figure. The sun had already sunk below the horizon. Only a sliver of afterglow remained in the sky. My gaze swept frantically over every face, but none of them were hers. Anna. I stood at the roadside, shouting the name that had been buried in my heart for so many years. People hurried by. No one stopped. I lowered my head in frustration, Regret gnawed at me. I shouldn't have run. I wanted to see her. Chapter 14. Star. A pair of girls' shoes appeared in my line of sight. I jerked my head up. The last trace of sunset glow faded from the horizon. For a brief moment, the whole world was taken over by a deep, muted blue. The girl was staring blankly at me. Her shallow, beautiful eyelids curved into graceful lines, slanting gently toward the outer corners of her eyes like a crescent moon. A tiny red mole at the tip of her upper eyelid danced with the faint tremor of her lashes. In a trembling voice, I called her, Anna. My vision blurred. Anna raised her right hand, but I stepped forward and pulled her into my arms before she could move further. Her body trembled slightly. Then she returned the hug with one arm. In my ear, Anna whispered, I finally found you. Chapter 15. Meeting Anna was the greatest stroke of luck in those 5 dark and painful years after I went missing. I was never taken in by some kind-hearted family. That was just the excuse my parents came up with to tell others. The truth was, when I got lost, I ended up in the hands of a criminal gang. There were many children there. The healthy, pretty, and very young ones were bought by others. The rest of us were taught to steal. As a child, whenever I got scared, I wouldn't speak. They thought I was mute, so I decided to keep pretending. I was forced to learn all kinds of stealing techniques, and getting beaten or scolded was part of daily life. We ate awful food that was never enough to fill our stomachs, and slept on straw mats laid out on the floor. I was obedient, well-behaved, and because of that, I avoided a good deal of beatings. I had seen what happened to children who disobeyed. Those images were like nightmares, leaving me unable to sleep well for a long time. Anna was different from the rest of us. She called one of the bad men their uncle. She lived in another household in the village. The first time I met her, she was walking past where I stayed, carrying an old, torn burlap sack on her back. Her uncle scolded her, telling her to go home, but she smiled innocently and said, Grandma told me to go collect bottles. You can only spend the money from selling bottles yourself. Her clothes were worn, but washed clean. Her face was delicate and doll-like. She didn't look like a child who should have been born in this place at all. We kids who stole and begged would be loaded into trucks and taken to the city to beg pitifully for money, to scam and trick people. Someone always kept watch over us. It wasn't that no one had tried to escape, but no one had ever succeeded. Anna also rode the truck into the city, but she carried her sack around to collect trash. When we were in the truck, she didn't talk to us. She was always quietly looking elsewhere. Maybe because she was different. I wanted to get close to her. Once I had collected the required amount of money, I would run over to help her pick up bottles. At first, she was a bit cold toward me. Her dark eyes only glanced at me lightly. I would approach her cautiously, holding bottles, and slip them into her sack. She didn't refuse. Among the people watching me was her uncle, but for some reason, he chose to turn a blind eye. Over time, I became Anna's shadow. I liked picking bottles with her. I didn't like stealing. I didn't like begging. As the days passed, Anna's attitude toward me began to change. Sometimes she would secretly give me something tasty to eat. I was also allowed to roam with her collecting trash. Her uncle once warned her, You can pick trash together, but if he runs, I'll sell you off, and you'll never see your grandma again. Then he turned to me, You've seen what happens to kids who fail to run away. Try it if you want to end up like that. I nodded frantically. Star was the name Anna gave me. When she curiously asked for my name, I, still pretending to be mute, pointed to the night sky. Once, Anna fell into a deep roadside pit, and in my panic, I shouted out loud. She stared at me in shock. After she was pulled out, she quickly reached out her muddy hand to cover my mouth. If I hadn't been pretending to be mute, I probably would have been sold off long ago. Anna understood our situation all too well. She said with a serious face, Star, don't talk. I just held her tightly. Back then, I was terrified, afraid they'd find out I was faking. And even more afraid Anna might have died. I couldn't bear to imagine what I'd do if she were gone. Because I was close to Anna, I was able to leave that small courtyard and go to Anna's house, though I was still trapped in the village. Above me, it was as if a giant beast was waiting with its jaws wide open. After a few visits, I no longer wanted to return to that courtyard. I begged Anna, and she in turn begged her grandmother and her uncle. Anna's grandmother would look at me with pity in her eyes, and sigh in helpless sorrow. Her relationship with her son, Anna's uncle, was strained. Whenever he came, she would scold him, refusing to let him in the house. But for Anna's sake, and mine, she tried to speak kindly to her son. Anna's uncle, though cruel, was still filial toward his mother. I don't know how he negotiated with the gang. But I got my wish. I left the courtyard and moved into Anna's home. I no longer had to beg or steal. Anna's grandmother often cursed at her son and the people in the village. She would say, When people lose their conscience, they're nothing but heartless beasts. After doing so many wicked things, sooner or later they'll face retribution. The old woman's eyes, clouded with age, held too many stories and too much pain. Whenever she looked at Anna and me, they softened with compassion. She asked if I remembered where my own home was, if I remembered my parents' names and faces. I shook my head. 2 years had passed, and I had been so young, my memories were already blurry. But I remembered my parents' and sisters' names. Every day, I recited them in my heart, afraid I might forget. Chapter 16. My reunion with Anna was something I never expected. When I first came home, I didn't want to recall anything about those 5 years I'd been missing. Even though Anna had been part of those dark days, back then, when we parted, I thought we would never meet again. I never imagined she would come looking for me, because I had lied to her, saying, "Study hard, and in the future we'll get into the same university, we'll meet again." She believed me. After finishing her college entrance exams, she came to see me. I asked, "How did you know I was here?" Anna pressed her lips together and said, "I remembered the city you lived in, remembered your parents' names. I looked it up online, your family had been on the news, so it was easy to find." Her voice choked as she said, "I'm sorry, you probably didn't want to see me, but I've always missed you. I wanted to see you, to see how you've been living." Listening to Anna's words, my eyes stung. When I first heard the name Star, my instinct was to avoid it. I ran because I was afraid. Those memories were my nightmares. But after that instinctive fear, I still chose to turn back. Anna was the one who had treated me best besides my family, even surpassing them in some ways. She had always held a heavy place in my heart. If she had changed, then the only person who mattered to me would have been the Anna from my childhood. Yet when our eyes met at the traffic light, her gaze told me she was still the Anna I knew. I studied the girl in front of me. She had been especially beautiful as a child, and now that she'd grown up, her looks were 1 in a million. I sighed and said, "Anna, you've become even more beautiful." My gaze made her a little shy. Her ears turned red. Her eyes shifted away gently. I chuckled. "You even get shy now." Seeing me smile, Anna quietly looked at me. The moon was hanging in the sky, but her eyes held the moonlight, cool, yet soft. The more I smiled, the more I felt my ears grow warm for no reason. I reached out and touched Anna's empty sleeve, and my mood suddenly sank. Through clenched teeth, I asked, "Has someone bullied you? Let me see." As I spoke, I moved to lift her clothing. Anna dodged away, lips pressed tightly together. In a low voice, she reminded me, "Star, I'm not a child anymore." I froze for a moment, then scratched my head awkwardly. She blinked and said, "No one has bullied me. And if someone did, do you think I'd let him off? You know me, I'm not the type to take a loss." Yes, Anna was the kind of woman who seemed gentle and quiet, but was actually not someone to be trifled with. But missing one hand, she was still more likely to be targeted. Back then, when the police raided the village and arrested the criminals, I returned home, and Anna was taken away by her father, because she was born with a disability. Anna's mother, who had had her out of wedlock, was abandoned, and eventually died in grief. Anna had been left in the village for her grandmother to raise. Her father, who had been married for years without having children, diagnosed with infertility, later came for her, wanting to raise her. Anna didn't want to go, but after her grandmother passed away, and after I left, she finally went with her father. I vaguely remembered that Anna's father was not an ordinary man. Now, looking at her, her whole appearance seemed simple, but everything she wore was from luxury brands. Still, those were only the externals. Given Anna's background and disability, being taken back by a father who didn't love her, she must have suffered a great deal. When she said she hadn't been bullied, I didn't believe it. She just didn't want me to worry. Chapter 17. Anna told me about her experiences during the years we'd been apart. Her tone was soft, skimming over details, choosing only the lighter parts to share. Even so, I could still catch glimpses of pain between her words. When she finished, she looked at me seriously and said, "I want to hear your story. If there were only one person in this world to whom I could open my heart, that person would be Anna." She knew my most unbearable memories. She had been there with me during my most painful moments. She had seen both my good side and my bad. I didn't need to hide in front of her. I didn't need to pretend, because I knew she could understand everything about me. I told her everything that had happened after I came home. I confessed my resentment toward my parents. I openly shared my disappointment in my sister, and my grudges with Makoto. My voice grew hoarse as I said, "Honestly, my memories from when I went missing, they're not very clear anymore. I only remember that it was my sister who lost me, but she has always insisted that I wandered off on my own. These years, we've argued about it countless times with no resolution. As I've grown older, I've begun to feel that maybe my sister really wasn't lying. Back then, we were both so young, and children's memories are often incomplete. I don't know whether one of us is lying, or if neither of us is. When I was little, I always wondered why my parents didn't take my side. Later, I understood, No parents would harm or harshly punish one child for the sake of another. They just wanted things to end there. For the family to be at peace. The one who suffered would just have to accept it. Besides, at most they would have beaten her up a bit. What else could they do? Kill her? Throw her away just to make me feel better? As for Makoto, I simply couldn't stand him. While I was suffering, he enjoyed all the privileges that should have been mine. I was unwilling. I was angry. Even if he truly never wronged me, I still wanted to vent my resentment on him. I hugged Anna, who was quietly listening to me. The resentment that had churned in my heart for years gradually calmed. Today, when I saw the four of them laughing together, I suddenly felt it was all meaningless. Everything over the years had been meaningless. I had always wanted to win something, to make everyone else uncomfortable, but in the end, nothing had changed, and I had never been happy. All I felt now was deep weariness and confusion. Anna rested her head on my shoulder, and softly comforted me. You still have me. I'll always be on your side. Star, you are my only choice. As long as you need me, I'll be with you no matter what you do in the future, but I still hope you can be happy. In that moment, holding Anna and gazing at the distant night, my thoughts seemed to grow lighter. That heart of mine, always empty and restless, felt full at last. Chapter 18. Anna was staying at a hotel near my home. I would go see her from time to time. My sister narrowed her eyes at me and said, "Hey, brat, are you dating someone?" Lately, my temperament had changed a lot. I no longer butted heads with her. That day when we returned from the gathering, she had cautiously watched me come home late, trying to explain why she'd met with Makoto. I simply responded with an indifferent I shrugged and said, "That's your freedom." She stared at me in surprise, her face full of disbelief. I no longer bantered with her like before. Even when I occasionally heard Makoto's name, I had no particular reaction. My sister often looked at me with a frown, as if she wanted to say something but held it back. Today, when she asked me if I was dating, I shook my head. To tell the truth, Anna and I weren't in a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. She asked, "So, what's going on with you and Willow?" Willow? I hadn't really been in touch with her lately. She had sent me messages, and I replied politely. When we met, it was just a brief greeting before I left, no desire for deeper conversation. I had liked her before, but that was it. She was too purposeful. From the day she came to my home to meet me, I had already seen the reality, and after seeing her at that gathering, I completely lost interest. A woman who drifts between multiple men with no sense of boundaries. A woman who might feel something for you, but would never firmly choose you. Not worth it. Thinking about it carefully, we weren't really anything. I never confessed, and we were never together. At most, we were just neighbors. That one moment of flirtation meant nothing at all. Chapter 19. On the day the exam results came out, I left the house early in the morning. I went to meet Anna. We had agreed to check our scores together. The moment the numbers appeared, Anna and I exchanged a smile. I had originally planned to have dinner with her. I was just thinking about what to eat to celebrate when my parents called me to come home. When I arrived, standing at the doorway, I was momentarily taken aback by the scene inside. Besides my family, Willow's family was there as well, and Makoto. They were all smiling happily, but when they saw me, there was a brief silence, as if I were some out-of-place outsider. My parents called me over, anxiously asking, "George, did you check your results yet? How many points did you get?" I hesitated. My mom tried to comfort me. "It's okay. Even if you didn't do well, it doesn't matter." Makoto chimed in, "Yeah, George." Then he grinned. "By the way, Alicia and I both scored over 580. We're planning to apply to the same university." Alicia leaned toward me and asked, "You usually score pretty well, don't you? You should have gotten over 600 on the college entrance exam, right?" When Makoto heard her say over 600, a trace of disdain flashed in his eyes, but it quickly turned into a smug smile. "You said before you wanted to get into Peking University. What? Is your score too low for you to admit it?" I stared at Makoto and slowly smiled. I said, "It's not that I didn't do well, it's that I don't know my score." Everyone looked puzzled, except Willow, who was the first to congratulate me. Makoto's expression darkened. "Why are you congratulating him?" he asked. Willow smiled and said, "When scores are hidden, it means the student is in the province's top 50. The numbers are kept confidential. George, I'll be waiting for you at Peking University." Makoto's gaze shifted between me and Willow, and then he suddenly clenched his fists. My parents were overjoyed. They praised me for being outstanding, for making them proud. I listened, but felt no joy. Then they turned around and said to the frowning Makoto, "Our Makoto is also amazing. Getting into a prestigious university is just the first step. Life is long. You won't necessarily be worse than those students." Looking at Makoto's deflated expression, I suddenly laughed out loud. My dad gave me a disapproving look. He frowned and said, Doing well doesn't give you the right to look down on others. Character is more important than grades. I looked at everyone in the room and asked, puzzled. I'm just happy. I did well. Am I not allowed to be happy? Not allowed to smile? If he's frowning, am I not allowed to be smiling? I wasn't mocking him. Is it my fault he didn't score higher than me? I walked up to Makoto, with a bang. I punched him without warning, then I laughed and said, ha ha ha. Well, now it's my fault, because I'm the one who made him cry. Makoto clutched his reddened face, stunned. My mom looked at me, eyes filled with hurt and disappointment. She said, George, how could you do that? Willow frowned, came over, and tugged at my sleeve, trying to get me to leave. I shook her off and turned to walk out the door. The air outside was amazing. George, my sister chased after me. I asked, what? Are you going to say a few words in Makoto's defense too? My tone carried a trace of mockery. She pressed her lips together, her gaze complicated. No. I'm worried about you. Makoto shouldn't have acted like that, and Mom and Dad shouldn't have said those things to you either. George, I'm sorry. I frowned at her, silent for a long time before speaking. I said, the words, I'm sorry, are worthless in the face of harm. The only power they have is when the hurt person chooses to forgive and accept them. Alicia. I don't accept. Chapter 20. Anna and I applied to the same university. After receiving our admission letters, I pulled out all the allowance money I'd saved over the years and suddenly had an idea. Anna, let's go on a graduation trip together. Anna didn't hesitate for even a second. She nodded. Sure. I don't know where my sister got the news, but on the day of departure, when I saw her at the airport, my face instantly darkened. I asked, what are you doing here? She shot back, annoyed. Why can't I be here? You just left without saying a word. Do you know how worried the family was? I laughed. Worried about who? Me. Playing the family card now. Acting like the perfect sister. What's the point? She bit her lip. What am I pretending about? I am your sister. We started arguing right there in the airport, nearly coming to blows. Anna was so anxious she was almost in tears. She hugged me and tried to calm me down. Reluctantly, I reined it in. Anna turned her gaze on my sister, her eyes dark and steady. She bit her lip and said, brothers and sisters are supposed to protect and understand each other. And you, what have you ever done? Alicia fell silent immediately. Her expression turned dejected. For the rest of the trip, she acted like she'd been replaced by someone else, constantly fussing over me, being overly warm and affectionate. I felt completely uncomfortable. Seriously, don't you think this is gross? I asked, speechless. She looked at me pitifully. I just want us to be a loving brother and sister. How can you call that gross? Late at night, I quietly left the room. Anna was already waiting outside. I took her hand, and we walked out of the hotel to the beach, listening to the waves and looking at the stars. The nighttime air by the sea was chilly. I draped a jacket over Anna's shoulders. We sat on the sand, leaning against each other in silence. I sighed. My sister's insane. Let's book tickets tomorrow for somewhere else and ditch her. She, barefoot in the sand, nodded gently. All right. I laughed. Actually, I'm kind of happy, I said. This is the kind of sibling relationship I always imagined. Before I was 5, even though we argued, bickered, and fought over things all the time, she would block Dad when he tried to hit me, and I'd protect her when someone bullied her. These days, I keep dreaming about the day I got lost, but it's still blurry. What I resent isn't the fact that I went missing, but that they found a replacement for me. I wanted my parents to be our parents, mine and my sister's, and for my sister to be my sister, but they brought in Makoto instead. And then they have the nerve to tell me to be magnanimous. I can't, not even a little. Forgiveness is impossible. Harm is the damage suffered. Making amends is compensation for that damage. Compensation seeks equivalence, but it can never replicate the same thing, let alone erase the loss. They're not interchangeable. Anna held my hand tightly. She didn't say a word, but just looking into her eyes, I felt calm inside. The sea breeze tangled her long hair. I traced the outline of her features, thinking she'd look beautiful no matter if her hair was long or short. I smiled. Anna, I want to do something bad. Her gaze flickered. When I leaned a little closer, Anna suddenly rose on tiptoe and kissed me. The kiss carried the coolness of the sea breeze. It was light, so light it made my heart itch. A faint current surged through my body, like the flutter of butterfly wings stirring up a storm in my mind. Chapter 21. When I got back, I noticed there was more sand at the doorway of my sister's room. I remembered it being clean when we left. I paused for a few seconds, then went back to my own room. After half a month of traveling, Anna and I went back to our respective homes. We agreed to meet again when school started. After returning, I overheard Alicia telling my parents, from now on, don't let Makoto come to our house. Makoto, who had never called me before, suddenly called out of the blue. He demanded to know what I'd said to my sister. Why she was ignoring him now and telling him not to contact her again. I couldn't be bothered to explain. I simply hung up and blocked him. It seemed like my parents were trying to bridge the gap between me and them, but the years of distance had already pushed me far away. Every day, I counted down to the start of school. I video chatted with Anna every day. I lived day by day, waiting. I couldn't wait any longer, so I left a few days early. Anna came to pick me up at the airport. The moment she saw me, she ran straight into my arms. She hooked her arm around my neck and said with mock pitifulness, "If I didn't only have one hand, I'd have climbed onto you like a koala." I lowered my head to look at her and said slowly, word by word, "Then run again. I can catch you. One hand doesn't change a thing." Chapter 22. I ran into Willow at school. She said, "George, I've been waiting for you all this time. You said you got into Peking University for me." I quickly cut her off. No. Willow was standing under a tree, the sunlight filtering through the leaves and scattering over her. She looked dazzling. I looked at the girl I had once liked and said seriously, "I didn't take the exam for you." Willow frowned. "Why would you say that?" "Fine. I won't see Makoto anymore. Is that good enough?" Anna, who I had arranged to meet at the library, appeared by my side. She looked at Willow coldly. Willow's gaze dropped to our joined hands, and her expression soured. I smiled and introduced, "This is my girlfriend, Anna, my neighbor." Willow stared at me in disbelief. The light in her eyes dimmed instantly. I didn't care to read her thoughts. I just took Anna's hand and turned to leave. I got into Peking University first and foremost for myself. And second, for my promise to Anna. As a kid, I didn't know much about universities, only that Peking University existed. So I told Anna we'd meet there. Anna suddenly asked, "Was she your first love?" I froze, caught off guard, a little guilty. The red mole at the corner of her eye peeked out when she lowered her head sadly. I quickly said, "No, of course not. If we're talking about first love, you're the one." Anna stared blankly at me. I bent down and kissed her lips. I said, "You're the most important person to me, and the one I love most. No one can compare to you." Anna's lips curved into a faint smile. She rose on tiptoe and kissed me back. She said, "I feel the same."